Fraction. So we are looking at fractions, exponents that are fractions is all we're looking at. Okay? So we are looking at how do I deal with exponents that are fractions. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple different examples. Let's look at a couple of these. So first of all, if I have x to the 15th to the 3/5 power. Okay, grab a calculator if you don't have one, because you can do the fractions on your calculator if you want to. So please grab a calculator. Okay, so as we're going through this, please type this in with me so you can make sure you know how to do these on your own. Okay, so as I look at example 1, I have x to the 15th to the 3/5 power. I have an exponent that is a fraction, so this would be considered a rational exponent. So to simplify this, I have 15 to the 3/5 power. So what do I do with 15 and 3/5? Just talked about on the warm-up. Nope. Multiply. I have an exponent raised to another exponent. I'm not multiplying things together. I'm raising 15 to the 3/5 power. So we need to multiply the exponents. 15 times 3/5. Plug it in your calculator if you need to. What is 15 times 3/5? 9. So it's x to the 9th. So when you raise an exponent to another exponent, it is 9. Okay, so if I look at another example, this one's a little different because I am throwing in a coefficient. Remember, a coefficient is the number in front of a variable. So I'm throwing in a coefficient of 9. So this looks a little different. So what you have to do is you have to deal with the coefficient and the variable separately. So 9 to the 1/2 power and x squared to the 1/2 power. So we are dealing with each one of those separately. The 9 to the 1/2 power and x squared to the 1/2 power. Okay, the exponent or the variable we know how to deal with. You do it the same way we just did the one above it. Now the constant, the 9, the coefficient. Okay, here's how you deal with rational exponents. The denominator becomes the root. So this becomes the second root of 9. And your numerator, the top, becomes the exponent. So this is how we deal with rational exponents. The denominator becomes your root, so this is the second root, which you never really see a 2 out front. It's just a square root, but it's really the same as having a 2. So a square root, and then your numerator becomes the exponent. Now you can either do 9 to the first, or square root it and then to the first power. It doesn't matter the order. Sometimes it's easier, but it doesn't matter if you square root it and then to the first or to the first power and then square root it. So your denominator becomes your root, your numerator becomes your exponent. So if I simplify that, what is the square root of 9?
3.
3 to the first power? 3. Now your variable you treat like normal. What do I do with the 2.5? What do I do with the? I multiply. It's x squared to the 1/2 power. So I multiply 2 times 1/2, 1. So it's just x to the first. So if you have a coefficient, if you have a number in front, you actually have to simplify it. Variables, you just multiply the exponents. Coefficients, you have to simplify it. Okay, let's look at another example. Example 3. So I have 625 b to the 4th all to the 3/4 power. Okay, I have a coefficient, I have a number in front, plus I have the variable b to the 4th. So let's go ahead and simplify this. So as I look at this, we're going to do them separately. 625 to the 3/4 power and b4 to the 3/4 power. Okay, my number. You have to remember your coefficient. You have to remember the rule. The denominator becomes the root. So this is going to be what root?
4th
root of 625, and then to what power? The third power. I usually like doing the root first. It doesn't matter the order, but I look at this and I say, okay, if I would do 625 to the third, that's going to give me a really big number. So I'm going to do fourth root first and then take it to the third power. And then we can go ahead and simplify this variable. B to the fourth to the 3/4 power, I do what with my exponents? So what is 4 times 3/4? You don't need a calculator for this. What do you notice happens? 3. 4 times 3/4, so 4's cancel, so that just becomes b to the third. So your variable isn't bad. Your constant, your number, is a little bit of work. So we need to take the fourth root of 625. I don't know off the top of my head.
It's 100.
Right, it ends with a 5.
What the heck?
So, yeah, it ends in a 2-5, so I'm thinking it's going to end in a 5. I know, it ends in a 5. Let me show you how to do this on your calculator.
You don't just hit 4.
So real quick, just to make sure we can do this, square roots, you can kind of think about it. Fourth roots, third roots, fifth roots. So to do this on your calculator, you type 4, and then you do second, the caret button. So that says the fourth root. If it's a square root, you just use the square root button. But you do 4, and then second, and then the little upside down V shape. And now it'll look like this. That means the fourth root of 625, which is 5. So it becomes 5, but it's still to the third power. So what is 5 to the third? 125. Plug in your calculator. So that's 125 b to the third. So when you're dealing with coefficients like that, the denominator becomes your root, the numerator becomes your exponent. Let's look at one more. Let's look at one like this. 243. Sorry, I put the parenthesis too soon. 243 x to the 15th to the 3/5 power. So you can go ahead and split it up to each one. So 243 to the 3/5 and x to the 15th to the 3/5. Okay, 243 to the 3/5. What's going to be my root? So it's the fifth root of 243 cubed. And then your variable, you just multiply your exponent. So what's 15 times 3/5? Plug in your calculator if you need to make sure you know how to do this. 9. 15 times 3/5 is 9. So that's easy. You just multiply the exponents. The coefficient, the constant, is a little more work. Fifth root of 243. It ends in a 3, so I'm not expecting it to be a 5, because 5 would end in 0 or 5. So the fifth root, so we do 5, second, the caret button. Fifth root of 243. Don't put a parenthesis. 3, which makes sense, just by kind of looking at it. So it is the 3 to the third, x to the 9th, because the fifth root of 243 was 3. And what's 3 to the third?
27.
So 27x to the 9th. So make sure you simplify each part separately. Okay, any questions on that?
No.
Now, some of them are going to give it to you like this. So some of them are going to be written like this, and you need to write it. So if I have something like... We're going to do more, so you'll be fine. Okay, so as I look at this one, some of them are going to be given to you like this, where you have to write it. So if they're already written with the root, you have to write it in a rational exponent. So you're kind of going backwards. So first of all, just remember, I have a 10x. The whole thing is under the square root. My denominator will be what? 6/5. So my exponent will be 6/5. Your denominator is your root. So your root is 5. Your exponent is 6. That's your numerator. So if it's given to you already as a root, your root fifth root becomes your denominator, your exponent becomes your numerator. So you might have to work backwards. It's the same idea. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, let's go ahead and let me give you about 15 minutes to start the homework, and then we'll finish. We'll do another section real quick.
Okay.
37.
37.